Joining me on the program is Mr. Sanjay Lazar, who is an aviation expert. He is an aviation and regulatory expert who specializes in airline operations and customer service and regulatory approvals, and also in developing legal solutions for aviation and aerospace clients. Sanjay Lazar has written a best-selling book called Angel Wings. It's the story of the Kanishka bombing and also his life. He's lost dear ones and loved ones in that tragedy. Sanjay, very good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Afrida, for having me.
My pleasure. So as of now, we are looking at this AI-171 Air India plane crash. And what we know as of now is that 242 people were on board, out of which only one person managed to survive. This must be, in many ways, bringing back memories of the Kanishka bombing where you lost your near and dear ones. Can you tell us, when you look at this case, what does it bring back to you? What are your first thoughts when you heard about this?
Well, my first thoughts were ironically from a pilot from an Indigo aircraft that had taken off a little before this aircraft, and he was still circling around Ahmedabad. His son messaged me and said, "There's something going on at Ahmedabad. Why don't you tune in?" And I looked at the visuals that were coming in at that point, and they were shocking. Uh, Also because of my 38-year-long association with the airline, a lot of friends, people I knew on that aircraft, and very
You had
painful.
your father and your parents actually were in that aircraft in
No, ma'am.
Kanishka bombing case.
I'm talking about the Ahmedabad flight.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, but I'm saying that when you said you
my entire
lost,
family, my entire
yeah.
family. Okay, my entire family was on that
So I'm
aircraft.
saying it would have brought back those memories, those painful
And
memories
more
to
than
you as
bringing back,
someone who had.
it's brought back memories, but more than that, I've lived and been on in aviation and been through 4 disasters in my 38-year career. Apart from the Kanishka, we've also had 2 emergency, for jumbos in Bombay from a
Yeah,
Riyadh flight. We've also had the 2 Air India Express crashes. We were the first on the scene at most places as part of the Angels of Air India. So I've had a lot
yeah.
of experience with death and with aviation tragedy in my career. So, of course, it brought back memories, but more than my own memories, because I didn't see my own family's plane going down. It exploded in midair. It's quite different from this. So, this is a completely different situation. As you looked at the aircraft, it was, losing power and very tragic. I've seen a lot of them. We've been to a lot of crash sites as well in the last, 40 years, which I've been associated. So it was painful, and it is still very painful because of the long association with the airline, knowing the people of Air India and people on that flight.
Three things are coming out till now, and of course we are not supposed to speculate around it, but as someone who, like you said, have seen such incidents from close quarters, which out of these sound most convincing to you? Could there have been a systems failure, an engine, or a contaminated fuel, as some people are also saying? Could there have been a bird hit, or could it be simply a human error, a pilot error, as it were? Because here is an aircraft which is supposed to have an excellent track record, and here are pilots who are also supposed to have long years of experience. Despite that, this happens, and it's not very common to hear of a Dreamliner. Like I said, the track record does not show such incidents prior to this.
Well, like you correctly said, the 787 Dreamliner has been in service for about 15 years. There are 1,175 of them currently flying around the world, more than 5 million flights to date. And that means more than 30 million flying hours. When you look at this vast panorama, you've only had this is the first major incident or accident of a 787. So it's a very safe aircraft hitherto. Experience has been that the two pilots had almost 10,000 hours flying experience. Prior. So
Yeah,
there's a lot
yeah,
of things attached to it. If I had to speculate, and I would not like to, considering that the DFDR and the CVR have just been recovered, the black boxes, and
yeah, yeah.
the accident investigation board is on site. So is the NTSB team. But
Yeah.
it did look like the aircraft had after reaching climb at 625 feet, it lost power completely, both engines. So either it could have
Hmm.
been ingestion of a foreign object or a bird, flock of birds into both
Hmm.
engines. It could have been loss, complete catastrophic loss of engine power to both
Yeah.
engines, or like you said, human error or the contaminated fuel. Now, contaminated
Hmm.
fuel
Hmm.
does seem a little out of the way in the sense because the fuel is tested regularly and before each flight a sample is taken out, so it may not be the case because by now they would have
Okay.
already tested that. uh,
Hmm.
I cannot put my finger on it, but given the experience of the pilots, I would always give the benefit of the doubt to the pilot and say it was not human error. But,
Hmm.
in a crisis situation, you never realize. But when you look at the visual, you can make out that the pilot knows he's given a mayday call. He knows
Hmm.
that the aircraft is sinking, but he's yet
Hmm.
trying to
Hmm.
control it and hold it balanced. As you can see, as in the fall, it's been
Yeah. Yeah.
completely it's stable. So, and remember,
Hmm.
Captain Sabharwal was a training pilot, very senior on the
Hmm.
787.
Hmm.
I'd flown with him on the 310s and the 777s years ago. So he's had more
Okay.
than 30 years in Air India. So he's
Hmm. Hmm.
quite an experienced pilot, but you never can tell.
So in terms of updates that are coming in, of course, one, as you mentioned, the black box has been recovered. Typically, how long does it take to get all these details out? And is everything put out on public domain, or is there discretion exercised by the civil aviation bodies? Can we expect to know the actual truth in this case?
So a couple of things. Number one,
Hmm.
uh, both the black boxes have been recovered. It
Hmm.
depends on the condition of the black box. Now we know one
Hmm.
was in a
Hmm.
pretty decent condition because it was on the roof with the tail.
Yeah.
The tail was
Yeah.
not damaged, right?
Hmm.
But we don't know about the cockpit voice recorder because that was
Hmm.
in a inferno. So
Yeah.
it would depend on how the condition of that is. I remember a
Hmm.
case where a particular CVR had to go all the way to Seattle to get read and deciphered because it was in such a bad shabby condition. It was
Hmm.
damaged beyond all recognition. So I would
Yeah.
expect typically preliminary data in the next 7 to 10 days. You'd get
Hmm.
some data, you'd get some indication, maybe even before, because there's also ACAS data which the engineering could monitor the avionics from. I
Yeah.
expect a proper report within 30 days, but the
Okay.
detailed findings will probably come months later. And yes, they will be accessible to the public once the DGCA has completed its investigation. Once the
Hmm. Hmm.
Aircraft Investigation Board and NTSB submit their reports to the
Yeah.
various bodies, then there is,
Hmm.
the DGCA takes it up to another level and then they look into it. And you also have the engine manufacturer involved, you'll have the aircraft manufacturer involved, you'll have representatives of, the pilot bodies, the airline, everything in that. And they'll
Yeah.
have a discussion and they'll finally come upon a report which they will
Hmm.
then present to the public. So you will eventually know. So if it is one of the three or four causes that we've mentioned, it will be listed
Yeah.
out there. And in this particular case, it will be of particular interest to many world airlines and the manufacturer
Yes.
themselves because it's a unique one. It's the first, and the first,
Hmm.
unfortunately,
Hmm.
is always the benchmark by which they set new parameters for operations and safety around that aircraft type.
Of course, now, as is expected and as it often happens, that a thorough inspection has been ordered, and that's something that has just come in terms of what the DGCA has done. It has directed enhanced safety inspections on all Air India Boeing 787, 8, and 9 aircraft with Gen X engines. The key checks include fuel systems, cabin air compressors, engine controls, and hydraulic systems, which is effective from 15th June. A new in-transit flight control inspection also being introduced. The airline has been told to resolve any recurring technical issues and submit reports to the DGCA. I want to come to this statement, Mr. Sanjay, that has come from the Aviation Cargo Federation of Aviation Industry in India, chairperson, Dr. Vandana Singh. Now, she says there are a lot of theories circulating, ranging from a bird strike to electric failure to mechanical failure to a complete system failure due to a software malfunction. But she says, from my point of view, I believe it was a total electrical and software failure that caused both engines to lose power. As a result, the aircraft couldn't generate enough lift or thrust to go up. But yes, then she, of course, adds saying that the black box will reveal all the data. One could see that the flight, the thrust was not there, and as you said, the pilot seemed to be trying hard to maintain a certain level of stability. But in this particular statement, she seems to be quite confident that there has to be a systemic failure somewhere in the
No, I think,
aircraft.
ma'am, what she's done is just taken, I
Hmm.
said there was a catastrophic engine failure. I've just taken one
Hmm.
statement, whether it was
Hmm.
hydraulic, whether it's electronical, whether it's electrical. I didn't specify
Hmm.
because that only the systems and the black box will reveal, right? She
Okay.
seems to have gone
Okay.
further. Obviously, it's the same thing. It's just the
Hmm.
same different bottle. What she's saying, it's nothing different
Hmm.
from the theories that are going out there. She's only
Okay.
used
Okay.
electrical very specifically, and loss of
Electrical and
thrust is
software
obvious.
failure that cause both engines to fail. So she's
Now,
saying that
I
it
don't know
has to be
about
an engine
software.
failure.
No,
Hmm.
ma'am. Both engines failing is obvious. So that was
Hmm.
from day
Hmm.
one,
Hmm.
from actually
Yeah.
15
Yeah. Yeah.
minutes, everything everybody could say. How the
Hmm.
engines fail, we are speculating over.
Hmm. Hmm.
She's correct in a way. I don't know whether it's a software failure or a hardware failure or a malfunction of wires or like you said, fuel. It could be
Hmm.
either of them. I wouldn't want to get into that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Frankly, I wonder, how qualified she's to make such a detailed statement, being a
Hmm.
cargo
Hmm.
body, to discuss
Hmm.
this, and it's still in the domain of the investigators. I would not speculate at all, at all. What is visible
Hmm.
is that it was a twin engine failure, and
Yeah.
that's all I can submit to you.
But in
I won't.
those 60 seconds of time, like 40 seconds within takeoff, this happens. So, you know, what exactly went on in those 60 seconds? That is what perhaps can you tell us what exactly the black box records?
Well,
How does it capture the flight
there are
information?
two.
What does it reveal?
One is a cockpit voice. A black box is not a box. There are two
Yeah,
separate
it's orange
instruments.
in color, apparently. Yes.
There are two separate instruments. First of all, there are
Hmm.
two, there's not one. There's a
Hmm.
cockpit
Hmm.
voice
Hmm.
recorder and there is the DFDR, right? The digital
Hmm.
flight
Hmm.
data recorder. One is in the tail
Okay.
section, one is in the cockpit section. So they're both
Hmm.
different. Together, they're called the black box. One
Okay.
records on a loop the last 2 hours of conversation of the cockpit. So you get to know what exactly was transpiring in the cockpit. The
Hmm.
DFDR
Hmm.
will record all the essential parameters of the aircraft avionics. Whether
Hmm.
it's the
Hmm.
electronics, whether it's the electricals, the fuel, the
Hmm.
hydraulic systems, all of that
Hmm.
is transmitted into digital data and it's
Hmm.
recorded
Hmm.
in that box and it's stored in that box for the length of the flight. So every level of flight, you will have some data that is registered on that, and that is highly, highly, it speaks volumes when you
Hmm. Hmm.
translate that data. It will tell
Hmm.
you when you plot it. It tells you exactly every parameter of the aircraft, whether it's the
Hmm.
sound, whether it's
Hmm.
the thrust, whether in terms of
Hmm.
the noise levels, in terms of the flaps, everything.
Yeah.
So that's very critical in this situation
Yeah.
for
Do you
that to
think
be.
the pilots being aware that the black box will record everything will also try and ensure that information goes out crisp and clear
I mean,
for
the
future
fact that he
purpose
gave
if
a mayday
anything
call
untoward
itself is
happens?
good
Or in
enough.
that moment, I don't know whether your
No,
mind
no,
will work
no.
like that.
The fact that he issued a mayday call within, just on taxi, literally on takeoff, is itself enough. That's the
Hmm.
crispest
Hmm.
signal that any pilot could give any ATC or
Yeah.
anybody in the
Yeah.
world. That's pure, plain and simple. He's given a
Hmm.
mayday
Hmm.
call. There'll be an ACAS message attached to that also, which they will, of course, translate and get deciphered. But according to me, very cool, calm, and collected pilot who knew what he was doing. He tried his best, it appears, to save the aircraft. Now, whether there was some human error or there was a mechanical error, or there was because from what we understand, there was absolutely no thrust, no lift,
Hmm.
and no
Hmm.
power in
Hmm.
the engines. And
Yeah.
that's you can see the aircraft falling like a stone. So that's about all I can offer at this point. I
Hmm.
can't go beyond that because I
Yeah.
would not
No, I
like to
understand.
speculate.
Just last couple of things. One is that, out of the agencies that are on ground, NIA is one of them, which is National Investigation Agencies. It's India's counter-terror body, as we all know. Any possibility, again, of course, we are supposed to refrain from speculation, but do you think a foul play angle is being looked into as well in this case?
Ma'am, I don't subscribe to that. I don't
Hmm.
believe, even, I've seen other people talk about it on various channels. I do not subscribe to
Hmm.
that at
Hmm.
all. I know the
Yeah.
NIA is there, and naturally,
Hmm.
because that is their
Hmm.
duty as
Yeah.
part of the
Perhaps
government
it's
program.
part of the process as well. It's a process of elimination that you need to
So they
go
will
through
be
the
there.
due process.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they will be there, but I do not subscribe to that. Doesn't appear to be any foul play in this particular instance. I know of people who were talking about, the ground handling or the engineering, and
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm sorry, I don't, buy into
Yeah,
that.
I
Uh,
understand that. I appreciate. I want to ask you the final question on the lone survivor, Sanjay Lazarji. I want to understand that, even in these circumstances, one person got out alive. How do you process that? Were you able to? I mean, for me, of course, I'm not an expert, but what a quirk of fate. And can that happen that you just get flung out of the aircraft conveniently in that moment before it bursts into flame? That is possible, is it?
no, first of all, that's a miracle. I mean, it's an act of God, let me tell
Mm.
you, that
Yeah,
anybody could have survived that tragedy. Um,
yeah.
but I looked at it very closely, and he was seated
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
11A, as he said,
Hmm.
which is next to
Yeah.
the L2 door. And
Emergency exit. Yeah.
yeah, it's the door. It's one of
Hmm.
the main doors of the aircraft. So it is
Yeah.
an emergency door. All doors are emergency exits on this aircraft, main doors. Uh, it's possible that, you remember the aircraft broke up on top of the hostel. The tail
Yeah.
section remained there.
Yeah.
Part of the rest of the body and the cockpit fell down, and
Hmm.
amongst the residential area and the college area, and it's probably split into at least two pieces, if not many more. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would, merely speculate that
Hmm.
perhaps he
Hmm.
got flung out when it split, and he's like he says he left from the emergency exit. I don't think he left. I think he was ejected
Hmm.
out
Hmm.
or just thrown out
Yeah.
from that point.
Hmm.
How,
Hmm.
I don't know. Either he was
Just
not,
in time. Just in the nick
maybe he
of
was not
time,
wearing a seat belt.
probably.
Seat
Hmm.
normally there's a seat belt that holds you back. So that's another
Yeah.
point that has
Right,
not been
right.
explained.
I mean, look at the contradictions here. I mean, on one hand, people don't like to take that seat. I don't know about you, but when given an option, I never take that seat because, you feel something odd about sitting next to the emergency door and you don't get a proper window seat, etc. People avoid that particular seat all the time, and then their hostess will come to brief you about the emergency exit, and you feel disturbed about all that. And here is a man, precisely that particular seat saved him. And
Yeah.
where we talk about safety belts all the time, here precisely that could have been the reason why he got flung out, is what we
We
are we
don't
are
know.
trying
He's
to
not yet
process. We
told
don't
us whether
know,
he
I'm just saying.
undid
Hmm.
his belt and then got, that's a mystery.
Hmm.
His brother was
Hmm.
sitting behind him, who's obviously not found. He was traveling with his
Right,
brother.
right.
So we'll have to wait and see when he comes out. I've seen videos of him, and he's not very coherent. He
Yeah,
still
yeah. He
seems
seems
quite
disoriented, absolutely.
totally, totally. So maybe
Hmm.
we need to
Hmm.
wait
Hmm.
till
We
he's
need
in
to
a
give him
position
time.
to.
Yes. Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay Lazar, for joining us, for giving us your views. Really appreciate your sharing your understanding with us. Means a lot. Thanks very much. Have a
Thank you.
nice day.